Another example of an industry that can be dependent on finding cheaper labor is the automobile industry. And I'm not going to say the automobile is like textiles. It's not as simple as making a t-shirt. But nonetheless, I have an example here in which they tried to find cheaper labor. So that's just one particular example, not saying that automobile companies utilize this finding cheap labor, because we don't find Haiti making a lot of our cars. But once again, there is an example of this. And so what we have is a lot of United States automakers, so U.S. companies, Ford, General Motors, Chevy, for example, who have moved their assembly plants just on the other side of the border of the United States. And so what you see there is we're now in Mexico, and this black arrow is one particular place we're going to look at here in a minute. But what they did was they essentially moved the facilities to an area where they could find cheaper assemblers. And so in Mexico, it's organized enough and developed enough where they have the capabilities to have these large facilities to build, to assemble automobile parts. So essentially, what they do is they then ship from the United States to these assembly plants all the various parts and pieces, and then they're assembled in Mexico, much cheaper costs, and then actually exported back to the United States as finished goods. So all of this is to save money. So they could make these overseas in Asia or in Africa, let's say, but all the transportation costs of moving all that heavy car, all that that 2 tons worth of metals all across the Pacific, it's expensive. And so what they did was they moved it as close to the United States as they could, but once again finding cheaper labor than they would find in the United States. And here we have a maquiladora. And this is what these facilities are called, these assembly plants that are built just on the other side of the Mexico border. These assembly plants essentially taking advantage of cheap labor, but also being close to the U.S. border, close to consumers. So this is once again all about finding cheap labor. So we have these maquiladoras, and these are spelled M-A-Q-U-I-L-A-D-O-R-A-S. So these came about probably more like the 70s and 80s, but we still see them today. So this is where a variety of Chevys, I can list off Cobalts and all these various products that were made in this particular facility, this assembly plant. It looks like anything we'd find somewhere in the United States. The only difference is this one's in an area just to the south of the United States border.